And welcome to our tutorial on using Adobe Flash to create simple animations. Today we're going to be working through a tutorial that's going to create another of the Angry Birds tutorials. This is a similar process to what we have attempted to achieve in Keynote recently. However, you'll notice that in Keynote we operated on 24 frames. When we're working in Flash, we're going to start working with industry standards. So the standard industry frame rate is for us to have 24 individual frames playing per second. So in the demo that I'm going to play for you, we are running a 5-second animation, and in that there are 240 frames being included. Now the benefit of using Adobe Flash is that this software is designed specifically for animation. So you don't need to edit manually 120 frames. Now the reason I talk about 120 frames, if we have a 5-second video and we have 24 frames playing per second, then in 5 seconds, we are going to have 24 multiplied by 5, which is 120 frames. Okay? And I'll play you a demo now of what you can expect to achieve by the end of this tutorial. You'll notice that the movement of the bird in this clip is significantly smoother than what we achieved in Keynote. And again, this is because we have more frames playing per second. So the movement is significantly smoother. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to close out of Flash so that you can begin exactly the same way that I have. So first thing we need to do is we need to navigate into a folder where we have a copy of the assets that we're going to need for today's tutorial. And in that asset folder you should have 5 images, a background, an angry bird, 2 different types of piggies, and a slingshot. We're now going to open our Applications folder, navigate to Adobe Flash, and operate Adobe Flash from a new document. Now when it opens up, I'm just going to click File to create a new. You'll notice in the center there is an option for what we're going to do is create a HTML5 canvas. However, it doesn't give us the opportunity to make some specifications. So we're going to go File, we're going to go New. In this left-hand panel, we're going to select HTML5, but we're going to start specifying the size of our document so that it looks identical on everyone's computers. So for the width, I'd like you to have the width set at 1423 pixels and the height to be set at 780 pixels. Now, if you don't have px listed pixels, then you can change your ruler inches using this drop-down menu. It may have millimeters, it may have inches. Just change it to pixels and make sure you're set to 1423 multiplied by 780. You also then want to make sure that your frame rate is 24.0 FPS, frames per second, and you want to make sure your background color remains at white. We're now going to click OK, and that's going to open our blank canvas. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to resize this window so that I can see the entire document. So I'm going to go up to the top here where you can see the zoom percentage, and I'm going to say fit in window. This enables me to see everything that's happening. Next thing I'm going to do is save this document. So I'm going to File, Save As. I'm going to save this in an appropriate location. So I'm going to name it as we always name things, last name, first name, and then Angry Birds tutorial. Now throughout the document, whenever I make significant changes, I'm going to just need to press save and it will update that file. So you should now have a screen that looks like this. First thing I would like you to do is now open Finder again, find where your assets are, click on background and drag that and drop it into Flash. If you click back in the Flash window, you'll see the background has now nice and neatly fit in there. You shouldn't need to make any adjustments because the size of the picture we are using for the background is exactly the same size as the canvas that we have created. Just like in Photoshop, we have the opportunity to utilize layers, and so we're going to take advantage of the layer feature to rename it to help us identify what layer we're working on. So I'm going to right click where it says layer 1. Sorry, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to double click where it says layer 1, and I'm going to rename it just to say background, and click enter to lock that in place. Now what I have is a background image that is going to play on one single frame. You'll see there's a little dot there, and we're going to click away. You can see there's a grey square, a black dot. That means we have entered one frame of our animation. The next thing we would like to do is we're going to create a new layer. We're going to rename this layer by double clicking again, and we're going to call this Slingshot. Click enter to lock that in place. Now, just like we did for the background, we're going to navigate to Finder, click on Slingshot, and we're going to drag and drop it into Flash. Now, when I click on Flash, I'll notice that there's a blue box around the Slingshot. That means it's in the mode where I'm still able to move it. I'm just going to navigate it over to the left side of the screen like you would experience when playing the Angry Birds game. Next thing that I need to do is to insert a pig. So again, we're going to create a new layer. We're going to rename that layer by double clicking, and we're going to call this a live pig. Because in the game, it starts with an alive pig, and then once it's been hit by the Angry Bird, we need to change it to a dead pig. We're going to again go to Finder. We're going to be using Piggy1. Piggy1 is the alive. You'll notice that Piggy2 is the dead pig, so we're going to use Piggy1 and drag it into our document. Now straight away, I can see that this pig is too big to fit naturally in our background. It doesn't look to be the right size. So just like in Photoshop, we're going to take advantage of the transform feature. So you can press Command T if you can remember that that is the transform shortcut. Or over on the right hand side, we've got the properties panel. You'll see this transform button. Click on that and it opens the same panel we're going to be working with. Now we're going to make sure we're on the transform tab. We're going to make sure that the chain here is on constrain mode, so the chain should be linked together. The other option is that the chain is broken. We don't want that. We want the chain linked together, and that means it's going to change the height and the width at the same time. So I can click on either the height or the width, and I can change that. I'm going to change it to 25%, and I can see that both the height and the width percentages have both changed to 25%, and I can now see my pig is the right size. So close the transform window, click on my pig, and move him into place. Okay, so now we've got our basic scene ready to go. We need to get a bird. So again, we're going to create a new layer. We're going to rename this layer Angry Bird. We're going to go into Finder. We're going to click and drag our Angry Bird into the document. This one's much bigger again. Again, we're going to use Command T to transform. Make sure we're on lock mode. And we're going to change this time to 10%. I've already done some demos with these files, so I know 10% is exactly the size we want to work with. Again, close the transform window. Click and drag our Angry Bird over into position. Now our Angry Bird typically starts inside a slingshot, and you'll see the slingshot that we've given you doesn't have the sling. Okay, all it has is the branches that are used for the slingshot. So we're going to need to draw those slings in. You guessed it, again, we're going to need to insert some layers. So insert a new layer, rename, and we're going to say sling front, and I'm going to create another layer, sling back. See, I've made a spelling mistake, I'll just quickly fix that up. So I have sling front and sling back. The reason it's important to have both a front and a back sling is so that it looks like our Angry Bird is sitting inside of it. Now I'm going to then introduce you to our tool panel. Now on Photoshop, our tool panel is on the left-hand side of the screen. In Flash, it's on the right side, but the tools are very similar. I'm going to take advantage of this pen tool. Okay, I'm going to select the color, and instead of just trying to guess what color, I'm going to just hover outside into our frame, and you'll notice that the eyedropper tool appears, and I'm going to click on one of the brown colors that I'd like to work with in order to match the colors so that it looks like it was an original part of the sling. I then have the opportunity to change the stroke size. So I'm just going to quickly draw you a demo. And if I draw some lines right now, you'll see that those lines are very, very thin. I have the opportunity to make those lines thicker though. I'm going to actually delete that away. I'm going to increase my stroke size to around about maybe 12.5 is a good place to start. Now you'll notice that when we're drawing using the pen tool, you click once, you click twice, click a third time, and it will just continue drawing a same line. You do not need to click and drag unless you want to create curved lines. Okay, and you can play around with that as much as you need to until you're confident, and just keep pressing Command Z, or you can just press Delete to delete any mistakes you've made. And now draw in your sling front. So I'm going to click at the front and I'm going to click at the back of the bird. Okay. Now I don't think my sling is quite thick enough to match, so I'm going to increase it again. I'm going to say 20 is my next test. I'm going to click and click again. I'm much happier with that thickness. Now that's the front sling. And I know that I'm doing the front sling because I'm clicked in the front sling layer. I'm now going to click on the back sling layer and draw another line. So again, clicking in the center here, and again, clicking towards the back. To avoid any further issues, I'm now going to change my tool back to the selection tool, the black arrow, just so that I can start moving things around without accidentally drawing lines. Now it doesn't look like my Angry Bird is in the sling at the moment, so I need to make sure that I reorder it. So this Angry Bird layer needs to go up. So I've just clicked and dragged it, and you'll now see that there is a sling sitting in front, there's an Angry Bird, and then there is a sling sitting behind it. Oh, we've got those layers backwards. There we go. So we've got the sling in front, which is the short one, we've got the Angry Bird, and then we have the sling in the back. And you can just keep reordering those layers as much as you need to until you've got that done correctly. Okay, so we've done some of the hard part now, but all we've done at the moment is create one single frame. And you'll remember me saying at the start of this video that we actually need to create 120 frames. I'm going to show you what we do next. The next thing we need to do is we need to go to frame 95 on the Alive Pig layer. So I've got Alive Pig selected. I go to frame 95 and I click, and you'll see a little yellow box appears to make sure I'm in the right spot. I'm now going to right click and say Insert Keyframe. What I've done is say I want that same layer, that Alive Pig layer, to be exactly the same in frame 95. So if I click on my red tool now, I can drag it the whole way across from 1 through to 95, and the green Alive Pig is there the whole time. When I get to frame 1, everything else appears. What I've actually done here is then when we get to frame 96, which is the next one, if I were to click here, there's going to be no pig. Okay, but we have to tell Flash that we want more than 95 frames. So we're going to go to the background layer now. Click here. We're going to scroll over to the 120th frame, and we're going to right click, insert keyframe. I now have a background. And you'll notice that I have, in the background layer, I've got this big grey section. That means that that background is going to exist on all of those frames. Frame 1, I've got everything that I started with. Frame 95, I still have my pig. When I tick into frame 96, my alive pig is gone. That's because in frame 96, the pig needs to die. So we're going to create a new layer. We're going to rename it Dead Pig. Okay, so we have our dead pig layer created now. Next thing we need to do is actually to insert our dead pig. So I'm going to go to frame 96, which is after frame 95, where the alive pig is. Frame 96, there's no alive pig. I'm going to insert by right-clicking, and I'm going to insert a keyframe. I'm now going to go back into Finder. I need to locate my piggy number 2. And I've accidentally shut down my Finder, so I've just got to navigate again. So I've got piggy number 2 now, which is my dead piggy. I'm going to click him and drag him in. Now again, this piggy is too big, so I'm going to transform it. I'm going to alternate the size. I'm going to make it 12% both height and width, and I did that by making sure it was on constrain. Get rid of the transform window and click and move the pig down to the right side of the screen. Now to make it look a little bit more realistic, I need to click between the alive pig layer and the dead pig frame, so 96 and 95, to make sure that I've got the dead pig positioned correctly. What I don't want is I don't want it to look like it's jumping. So you can see when I click between frame 95 and 96 now, it looks very smooth between the change of the alive pig and the dead pig. You'll notice on the dead pig layer I've got this grey section, dark grey section, and then I've got the light grey section. This dark grey section is all empty. Even though it's visible there, those frames are empty because I haven't actually put anything on that layer. Once it's turned light grey, that's when there's something actively on the layer. So if we just go, drag back to frame 1 now, and press the play button at the bottom, straight away the slingshot disappears, but you'll see the pig naturally goes from alive to dead, and it looks pretty smooth. So we've done very well now. The next thing we need to do is we need to actually get this angry bird over to here. Okay, so to get the bird to move so that it ends up at frame 95, having hit this pig, we need to right click on the angry bird layer, excuse me, clicking the wrong spot, right click over here, and we need to add in a classic motion guide. Now classic motion guide is going to mean that we can draw in the curve that we want the angry bird to fly in and tell Flash to automatically do the frame by frame animation for us. So I'm going to use my pen tool now. I'm just going to change my color to red, and I'm going to change my brush stroke back to something a little bit smaller now, so I'm just going to change it back to 1. Only so that we don't get confused between the slingshot and the motion tween. So I'm clicking in the center of my bird to begin with, and I want my bird to go up on a bit of a curve, and you can click as many times as you like, and then I want it to drop down and hit the center of the bird. Click away, back to my black arrow. You can see I've now got this red line. Okay, so I've got my bird now, and I've got my line that I'd like it to follow. I'm going to right click on, I'm going to have the angry bird layer clicked. I'm going to go to the Insert menu and I'm going to go Classic Tween. Now the only difference that has changed now is that I have all of these tiny little dots appearing in the frames of the Angry Bird layer. And so I'm going to click on frame 95 because that's where I want to be. I'm going to make sure I'm still in the Angry Bird layer. And I'm going to pick my bird and move it over to the pig and drop it. You'll now see that those arrows have now, those dots have gone, and it's now a solid line with a little arrowhead. Because if we now scroll around from frame to frame, the bird is now going to follow that motion path. Now obviously when we press play on our entire animation now, see the bird follows the path, that looks really good, ends up on the pig has now died, but the problem is we've got that line there, we don't need that line. So just like in Photoshop, we can turn layers off. So you'll see you've got your eye layer here, just click to get rid of the red line and play it again. That looks a little bit more natural now, done. And you'll see that the process we've undertaken there in terms of inserting a motion guide, creating a classic tween, and then making one slight change in the last frame has meant that all of that work in those 95 frames was done automatically by Flash. And that's one of the benefits of using Flash for animations. So we've now done that. Next thing we need to do is we need to make that slingshot look a little bit more realistic. So I'm going to go slingshot front layer. I'm going to click on frame number 2. I'm going to right click, insert keyframe. And in this frame, I'm going to use my second arrow now, click on the line, and you'll see the little blue guideline shows up. This is enabling me to shrink the line. Frame 1, it's still its normal size. Frame 2, it's significantly smaller. Frame 3, we're going to do the same thing, insert a keyframe, and I'm going to shrink the line again. Frame 4, I'm going to do the same thing, right click, insert a keyframe, and make it smaller. Frame number 5, right click, insert a keyframe, and make it smaller. Now if you notice, like has happened to me, that this line has gotten too small and you can't actually get it to the size you want, you can press the Command equals button, which will zoom into the zone you're working on, and you can edit it as needed. Frame 6, insert a keyframe. Frame 7, insert a keyframe. And you keep repeating until your line has basically turned into a single dot. So come frame 8, if we go to the slingshot on frame 8 and right click, insert a keyframe, you'll see when we scoot through now that the bird is moving. What we need to do next is the back sling. So I'm going to turn the front sling layer off so it's easy for me to see. I'm going to work in the back sling and we're going to repeat that process again. Insert keyframe and shrink it. Insert keyframe and shrink it. Insert keyframe and shrink it. Now, once the line gets smaller than the bird, because the bird's in front of it, I can actually shrink the line right up to here, and I can say, at this point, I want to insert a keyframe, and I want it gone. I can now test that, turn the 2 back on, and that looks very good. Now zoom back out, Command minus, or you can go to the menu, fit in window, and let's preview our little animation here. So far so good. The only problem that I can see is that the slingshot disappears right here where we've inserted our keyframe. So what we can do is we can actually insert more keyframes, or we can remove keyframes. Remove frames, whatever we need to do. Or we can simply, because we don't want the slingshot really to change, we can go right through to the 120th, right click, insert keyframe, and now our slingshot is present the entire way through our video. Play again, and complete. So now that we've created our animation, we need to save, and that's created a flash animation, but we now want to save this in a file format that anyone can play if they don't have Adobe Flash. We're going to go File, we're going to go Save As. Our other options are Export, and we can export it as a movie. If we go to Save As, let's look at the file types that are available. We've got uncompressed documents and Flash documents. Both of those are named Flash files, so Flash document or Flash uncompressed document, which means only people with Flash will be able to open them. So cancel that, we'll go File, Export now. Do we want it to export it as an image, as a movie, or as a video? So we probably want to export it as a movie. And you'll see now that I've got a number of different options here. So I'm going to call it an animated GIF, GIF. And I'm going to still name it Dwyer Josh Angry Birds Tutorial. You obviously put your name in and save. Now when we do that, it's saying, what size do we want? We don't want to change it. We want the width and the height to remain what we set them to be in the beginning. Now at the moment, you'll see at the bottom in animation, it says 0 repetitions, which means 0 repeats it forever. I can ask it to repeat once or 100 times, whatever you would like it to do, but after that, the GIF will stop. If you're creating a meme, for example, on Facebook, you'll notice those GIF files play on repeat. They have it set to 0. For today's exercise, we're going to have it set to 0 as well and say OK. And now Flash is rendering our file and preparing it for us to use. Shouldn't take too long at all. So I'm going to wait for this to finish, and then I'll show you the finished product. And hopefully you have the exact same product to show me. So go into my Finder window now, and I should see I have a document here called animation.gif. If I open it up, it opens up in preview, and you'll see that when you scroll down in preview, it has a whole heap of frames and sections that it's got here. We don't want to open it in preview. Typically we find these things in the internet, so let's open it with Google Chrome and see how Google Chrome handles it. That's a little bit better. Done. And you'll see that it is just repeating over and over exactly as we asked it to. That's the end of the tutorial. If you can send me your file and save it to your Google Drive for multimedia as evidence of this unit.